Hello everyone, I'm going to be doing a tutorial for the new DTT indicator, the enhanced version with all models, intraday, weekly, yearly. If you are unaware of what DTT is or what the framework is in general, it's a time-based model framework, time-based ranges, and it's very simple to understand. This video will be going over the tutorial for the actual indicator, and in the future videos on this channel, we'll be going over the actual framework. Now, starting off from top to bottom, we're going to be looking at the settings and looking at the default settings as they are presented on the chart here, for example. Currently, I am on a 15-minute chart, and as we can see, there is a weekly model known as Iscariot here. If I proceed up to that watermark, it will tell me from what time to what time the model is from, and we can see the previous model range here on the left with the boxes, marked with the bodies and the wicks. We can also see our AMRP range, which is a statistical range based off the DTT framework, and the extreme ranges residing within those as well. We also have our table showing the current range of the volatility, the average range of volatility, and the current percentage. To understand this easier, I recommend just looking at the percentage, and anything above 100% is extreme volatile conditions for this given model. So let's dive into the settings here and see what we can find. Starting from the top to bottom, you're going to find the general settings. Show model name, that's going to be the watermark located on the upper middle area. You can change the location of that watermark as well as the sizing and color of that as well. Default is on, so you can see what model you're currently in. Models to display. Again, this indicator includes all models from intraday, weekly, yearly with the DTT framework. Now here you can choose what to observe. If you simply want to observe only intraday and weekly models, you may do so, or any other model. Default is set to all, so what that means is when you proceed to a different time frame, and in this case the 3-minute, it will show me the intraday model as we can see here. If I proceed to the daily, I will then begin to see the yearly model as presented here. So you can choose what models to specifically observe depending on how you want to trade the framework. Here is your historical section, how many intraday models you want to observe at one given time, weekly models, and the yearly models. If I want to observe, for example, more weekly models here, I can increase this and view more historical root candles, etc., which can help out with the narrative of the framework. If you want to overlap intraday and weekly, you may also do so. What this means is, for example, you can go to the 5-minute time frame and you're going to be able to see both intraday and weekly models at the same time. So this helps you understand the fractal framework within the time-based model framework. So let's briefly turn on AMRP zones here so you can get the idea of how to incorporate this. We have our premium and discount zones, and here we have on the intraday the same thing. So it could definitely help give you a boost of the narrative, fractalizing the framework. You could also do that with the weekly and yearly, and that's based off the 4-hour time frame. That's when they overlap. So here we can see the weekly model and the yearly model above it in this case. Very helpful to do so. So default is set to off to have a cleaner chart. Next up would be your intervals on the outside of the model and inside as well. These intervals are based off volatility and also when a model begins and when it ends. Again, this is a tutorial for the indicator, so in the future videos, we will be talking about the framework more in depth. Here we can turn off the start and end times, as well as the intervals for each given model. If I turn off the start and end times, we can see the vertical lines have disappeared. You can change the stylization of those, and same with the intervals. Now included is a separate historical setting. So if I increase, for example, the weekly models in this case, we can see the inner intervals do not show up historically. But if I turn show historical on, it'll show me those inner intervals right here on these dotted lines. This is so you have a cleaner chart. If you keep this off, which is default off, you'll have a much cleaner approach to the framework. Next section would be the root candles. So here, very basic and easy to understand settings. Simply put, if you want to observe root candles, you can turn that on or off. You can choose to extend those roots by two options. Extend all of the root candles that are on the chart, and it would extend them to the end of the current model, as we can see here. If you choose previous to current, which is the default, it'll just move the previous root candle of the previous model to the next model's end time. And that way we have a cleaner approach. If you choose to have this off for extend roots, it will only extend the root candle to its specific model. So for example, you can see the root candle appeared here, and it extends it to the end model time. You can choose to observe the dotted line, which is the opening price in this case, or the time and date as well, which is the label. If you have that off, you now have a much cleaner and simpler approach. Next up would be the model highs and lows. If you turn that on, you can see the previous model range highs and lows, as in here. This is the Icarus weekly model high, and here is the Aries weekly low. Now, the reason we cannot see the Icarus low, for example, in this case, is because we have the hide field setting on. So if you turn that off, you're going to be able to see all time-based liquidity pools based off the current models. And you can choose to extend those based off session only, extend always, or extend until tapped. If you have extend until tapped, it's only going to extend that low or high until price has tapped it. Again, very basic and easy to understand settings. This is for the resting highs, the color, the lows, the color, the style, and the width of that line. Labels, the sizing, type of label you want to display. If you simply want to view the price or the model high and low, or both, you can choose so. Location of the label for the high and low. So if I choose left, it'll put it on the left side of that high and low. Again, default is off for the time-based range highs and lows. And next up would be your statistical level, or AMRP zones. Here, if we show AMRP zones with this setting, default is off for a cleaner approach. But if we turn it on, we're going to be able to see the statistical range box, which includes OHLC and volatility data for each given model. Now, we can also choose the color, show the labels, and show historical AMRP zones similar to how we did with the time intervals. So if I turn show historical on, it's going to show me the previous model AMRP zones for backtesting purposes. You can also choose to view the extreme levels, which is the outer level, or the moderate levels, which is the inner level. Simply put, this is based off the AMRP zone in of itself, as we can see here. Moderate level, extreme, and the AMRP level. Now, next up would be your projections. This is for when price breaks out of the AMRP zone. You're able to draw projections based off that. So it requires a close. As we can see here, price closed above it, and the projections were drawn. Price closed above the AMRP zone here, and the projections were drawn. This is to capture more volatile movements in case price breaks out of these statistical zones. So to customize this, you have the style setting. You can choose to always show the projections or require a close past AMRP zones, as we just mentioned here. If you have this setting off, you're going to be able to see the projections for each AMRP zone always at any given time. You can choose to customize the projections as well. So here we have currently negative 2.5, negative 2 as defaults, but we can also choose to have negative 3 included as a target. You can choose to manually offset it or extend it to the model end time, and it's going to drag those projection levels to the model end time, as we can see there. Last would be your volatility table. As we can see on the bottom right, you can choose to show the current model that's currently at play here, or all given models within the framework. As we can see, we have all weekly models displayed, current range, average range, and the volatility percentage based off that. You can choose to change the look back. This affects the statistical calculation, similar to how it does here in the AMRP zone settings. I hope this brought insight into the settings for the new DTT indicator, which includes all given models